Hey, good morning. This is Angel with DataCore Technology Solutions, and welcome to this episode of Ask DataCore Live. And today, obviously, I'm not with Jessica today. She is out for the day, so I get the forum all to myself, which is pretty scary. Basically, Jessica keeps me grounded and from going off into too technical topics, and so now you get stuck with me. So welcome. Tuesday, 11:31 a.m. So just want to welcome you here to our webcast. And so the past few weeks we have been talking about natural disasters. We've had some horrific hurricanes, some earthquakes in Mexico, wildfires up in the western part of the United States. So we've discussed a ton of disaster recovery and disaster preparation options. But I want to take a little bit of a break because I think we're saturated with all that stuff. I do want to give you a little bit of an update. I have heard from two out of three uncles that we've been waiting to hear from, so that was good. We're relieved to hear from 2 out of 3 of them, but we still are waiting to hear from one of them, so I want to keep them in prayer. And also I've got friends that still haven't heard from some of their relatives, so definitely want to leave or keep those people in prayer over in Puerto Rico and in the Virgin Islands as they clean up from Hurricane Maria. But today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Equifax breach. So we've heard a ton in the news about it. In fact, normally these things, you want to look for a ray of hope, but it really hasn't been a ray of hope. Actually, every day it seems like the news gets worse and worse. So let me give you a quick recap if you haven't been keeping up. First off, so Equifax was breached, and it looks like it was the accounts of over half of the United States population. So it was a pretty big event. It wasn't a small one. Then we hear in the news that the website that they posted on their Twitter was actually a phishing site to get people's information and really to verify it and get a little bit more honed in on whose information they had. So first off, they get breached. Secondly, we hear that their information's from or the information they posted on their Twitter feed was phished. And thirdly, that their CTO or chief security officer didn't even have any education in information security, and they recently resigned after this post or after this breach. So, I mean, the news couldn't get any worse, could it? Well, for them, it actually got even worse because now it looks like you can go on an Experian site, which is one of their competitors, and put in some information and verify some of the data that was breached. So, really, we have to sit here and ask ourselves, do we even really have any kind of an expectation of privacy anymore? I mean, this is our financial data, our credit score. We are measured by banks and by insurance companies about our credit worthiness, about our character even. I mean, I don't know if you've tried to get a loan lately, but I mean, this is the number they judge you by. So it just seems like we really don't have any kind of an expectation of privacy. And so, what are we as consumers doing? And I don't have the answers to this. I'm just asking questions. But what are we as consumers doing to demand better accountability here? We could go to government and ask them to step in. But, even they've been breached. I've got a buddy of mine who was lamenting online that, back when the Congressional Budget Office the Office of Personnel Management was breached, his information was out there. So, government, is not immune to this. And, then as I go through and talk to clients about it, I got to look at this and say, okay, even clients, they're not immune to this either. And some of them take it seriously, and some of them, think it can never happen to me. So, really, what can we do about all of this? And I think right now we're just at a point where we have to sit back, we have to reassess, we have to look at the overall situation, and we have to be reasonable and realistic about it. Obviously, be careful what you post online. I've seen tons of information and tons of people talking about that online. Just be careful what you're posting online. Because you may be posting the keys to your personal information. So you may be posting, and again, we all love to be acknowledged for our birth date, but if we post that information online, we make it easier for somebody to steal our identity. A lot of times we're tagging or geotagging photos, so we're adding location information. We're making it easier for somebody to target us, where we live, where we work, where we play, where we dine, by giving them a schedule of where we're at based on when we're posting, what photos we're posting, and what the geographic location of the photos are. So, it's a time to sit back and just assess what we're exposing ourselves to out there. There's no way to get around the fact that if a business like Equifax has our personal data and they get breached, we're exposed. So what can you do about it? I would say definitely get credit monitoring. In fact, you have to be careful who you get it from anyway. Equifax was offering free credit monitoring, but if you read their terms, you're basically waiving the right to sue them. So I don't know. I don't even know what to say. On the one hand, they look like they're owning the situation. On the other hand, they look like they're, trying to pass the buck. To be sincere with you, I don't have the answer. I'm pretty perplexed by it myself. I have credit monitoring from, a third party. That's just something I've kept, as a practice, just so I can know when changes are being made. It's something I've advocated for in the past, especially monitoring your bank accounts, monitoring your credit cards. Every time there's a charge on my credit card, I get a knock on my cell phone for it, and I get a ding just so I can know what's going on. Every time there's a transaction on our bank accounts, we get an email notification. So we got all those things, all those types of things set up already to protect us, but I think the only message I can leave you with is you got to own it. You got to be proactive. At the end of the day, nobody's going to treat your privacy, and nobody's going to treat it as seriously as you are. And if you don't treat it seriously, then you can expect those that you surround yourself with not to treat it seriously either. So, you've got to be involved. There's just no way around it. Monitor every account that you have. I know it's not convenient, but it's a reality. I guess it's the price we pay for some of the conveniences that we have based on technology these days. And then just be extra vigilant and judicious about it. And I know this is a hot topic. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the live webcast below so I can respond if need be. But, I'd love you to hear your thoughts about it, or if you have any questions, share them down there. We'll be glad to answer them. I don't think one person has the answer to it, although I do think it's prudent to be extra vigilant these days. And on the topic of vigilance, the other thing I wanted to talk about, so there's this tool that a lot of IT people use. It's a fantastic tool. We use it ourselves in some cases. It's called CCleaner. And what happened there was pretty scary, actually. So the company that develops the software was infiltrated, and code was injected into a release of the software before it was compiled and signed digitally. So a digital signature basically helps us to, hey Bryce, yeah, we can't really get off the grid, but we can try. I mean, we can go back and live like we did in the 1800s. I know I probably wouldn't sign up for that, but that is an option. And Alexis, what are we posting that we don't think is personal that can be used against us? You've got to be judicious. Any little bit of information can give somebody the edge they need to do a social attack. I mean, if you post that, you just got a new car, well, that tells somebody you've had a recent financial transaction. That maybe tells somebody you're credit worthy. You post what kind of car it is, and somebody can use that to target you in one way or another, particularly with social engineering. You might get an email that says, hey, click here to look at your new car recall report. So you just never know how that piece of information can be used by an attacker. Obviously, you want to think like an attacker, so I hope that answered that question. But back to the CCleaner story. So attackers actually got onto a developer system at Peerform, the company that makes CCleaner, and when they were able to inject code pre-compilation and they were able to actually send out a compromised copy onto their trusted download servers. And so This had been widely done, I believe, back in the Ukraine. This is where the Pecha virus, or the not Pecha, the second iteration of it, this is how it was distributed through a software developer. But this is the first time that we see this happen at such a ubiquitous, I guess, software developer. And by ubiquitous, I mean a lot of people use it. CCleaner is a very popular cleanup and tune-up utility. So what we did for our clients, obviously we went and we have the ability to search all of the computers that we have under our care and find whether we had that compromised version of CCleaner and then act accordingly. Now we didn't have that version installed in our client base, but we had the ability to detect it if we did and then act accordingly. But that's pretty scary when an attacker can actually get into software that a lot of people use and release a trusted version of that software right from a trusted download source. It'd be like somebody taking over Microsoft Word and injecting code into Word where it would be even more difficult to detect. So all that to say, we live in I guess a pretty scary, it can be a pretty scary world, but it doesn't have to be. I think if you're extra vigilant, if you are, if you ask a lot of questions and are curious about things, I think, you can still live with some reasonable peace around you. When I share these things, I don't share them to scare you. I share them to make you aware, because when you're aware, you can protect yourself. So bottom line, we like to always leave you with something you can do. I think the best thing you can do today is if you're not on our list that sends you our cybersecurity tips, go ahead and sign up for that. It's not going to save your life or save your world, but what it's going to do is as you get those emails, it's going to bring that stuff top of mind. It's going to remind you that, of what to look for, what to do, give you some practical steps. And I think awareness, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I think having that awareness there constantly, we send them out weekly on Mondays in the morning so that it's one of the first things you see. Having that top of mind awareness is going to go a long way to helping you be aware of how attackers think, what they do, how they do it, so that you can then spot it. And again, if you have any questions, here we go, Bryce. So geolocating generally is automatically turned on when you take pictures. So it's not when you post the photo, it's actually when the picture's taken, and the data is actually in the photo itself. So you have to turn it off. What you want to do is anytime you do an operating system update, so if you download a new Android update or a new iOS update, you want to just double check and make sure that the geolocation is turned off. So great question. Thank you very much, Bryce. And so if there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap up the broadcast now, but that doesn't mean that we won't answer them. So keep posting them below, and we'll be more than glad to answer your questions for you. Thanks. Have a blessed day. And we'll see you again next week with Jessica here with us. Thanks a lot.